Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast.
Hey, I got a bone to pick.
Guys, I am so fired up.
Sleep deprived and all. I'm happy to be here.
You probably cut up your hot dog. You don't need it on a bun.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast here on the field of 68. And we are right into college basketball preview season, guys. We are officially 5 weeks away from the start of the college basketball season. We are recording this on Monday, September 30th at 11:17 a.m., which means in 43 minutes, we will be exactly to the second 5 weeks away from the Field of 68 opening day showcase, tipping off in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with, I believe it is Charleston and Santa Clara in the first game of the college basketball season right here on the Field of 68. I'm fired up about it, boys. I am fired up about it. I'm also fired up about the Big East this season. And over the next 5 weeks, we are going to be diving into, on this pod, previews of each of the Power 5 conferences. And it feels very weird to say Power 5 conferences, but there are 5 power conferences in the world of college basketball right now. We're starting with the Big East because it is a league that we all know and love, and because T.O. is officially a Big East guy. So I'm going to start with this, gentlemen. Give me your—
Hey, first of all, before we get going, every beautiful Big East fan that we know, guys, we're not going to mention every single player on every single roster over this next hour. I think it's important that we go ahead and fire that disclaimer out. We're going to talk about the best 5 or 6. We're not going to talk about your 11th guy. It's just not going to happen.
Well, no, it means you're going to forget the 7th, and they'll make the 7th or 8th guy sound like the 1st or 2nd guy.
Right.
But all you Big East fans should know, it's a league of toughness. It's a league of having a chip on your shoulder. So if your guy doesn't get picked, yeah, we know you're going to use it as nightmare fuel. But I'm going to tell you right now, we don't, on these conference preview shows, we are not giving out participation trophies. We're going to tell you how we feel. We're going to tell you what we think. And guess what? We'll be right 50% of the time, God willing. And we'll definitely be wrong at least 50% of the time because it's a preview show. And we all know we're going to be all sitting here in January saying, what the hell? How did that team get up to the top 15? What happened there? How did Seton Hall just beat UConn and Marquette? We were saying that last season. You never know what we're going to be saying this season. Let's ride.
On the Seton Hall UConn thing, we had we hired a new social media guy about 2 weeks ago.
You hired?
Yeah, one of the things that we did to kind of test whether or not he was the right fit for this role is we just sent him, all right, let's pretend that Seton Hall beat UConn 82-66. This was from our executive producer, Dagan Hughes, who is, of course, a Seton Hall alum, graduated with Fanta from that prestigious university there. But we sent him the score, like Seton Hall beats UConn 82-66, and he sent it back with UConn beating Seton Hall 82-66 because there was no way the other thing could have actually happened. So that's a little inside baseball right there, and I quite enjoyed that. All right, give me your overarching thoughts on the league, Fan, and we're going to go to you first on this one because I know that you probably have a lot of thoughts about the Big East that you need to get out.
Well, it runs through Connecticut. That is the known. They are clearly the top team in this league heading into the season. They've earned that right, and that's why, in my opinion, they should be no worse than 4th in the country in a preseason ranking. I think others will have them worse than that, but when you've won back-to-back national championships, you deserve that slot. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Last year, 3 NCAA tournament teams. Not good enough, especially in this climate of college sports where NCAA tournament units matter. But the good news about this league is that the last 2 seasons, they have performed in the NCAA tournament. They've sent 3 teams to the Sweet 16 each of the last 2 years. So the teams that have gotten in, we've been talking about them come the second weekend of the tournament. But depth is the question. And the way that your league forms quality depth is if you put results together in November and December. UConn going to Maui, Creighton heading to the Players Era Fest out in Vegas, Providence going to Atlantis, Xavier is heading down to Fort Myers for a winnable event. They could meet Michigan in a final in that event. That would be a fascinating championship game between 2 teams who feel like they're in similar area codes heading into the season. You have to perform. The results in non-conference have to be better. Some coaches did load up their non-con schedules, Big 12 of last year style, to try to test the net and see if it works. We'll see how that strategy works, Cotton. But I'll tell you what right now, I think that this is a league that will have in and around 4 top 25 teams week in and week out. Maybe a 5th on the edge of the top 25, but I think UConn's at the top. I think Creighton is absolutely ranked. I think Creighton could be an Elite 8 team if everything pans out. And we'll get to why. Because at the end of the day, they got point guard play, they got a center, and they loaded up, and they got a very late addition internationally in Fedor Zugic, who is very, very talented.
Tio's favorite player, his favorite player in college basketball. He is so happy. That
Very good player. Very good player.
Favorite player. Xavier is a top 25 team. Whether you want them in top 20 or 25, they are a preseason top 25 team. And at the end of the day, Shaka Smart has accounted 56 wins the last 2 seasons. No, Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro are not walking through that door, but it's hard to overly doubt Marquette. And I think that St. John's can be a top 25 team if perimeter shooting exists. It's a good league. It could have a great year. It could have 6 NCAA tournament teams if all these things pan out and more. And then there's the program that we'll get to at some point on the show on the main line just outside Philadelphia that has as crucial of a year as they've had in a long, long time because change could be coming.
Theo.
Hell of a teaser. What the hell am I going to say? Here's what I will say. You alluded to the depth and how you perform in November and December, and that's a massive part of it, no doubt. But I also look at some of these other things. Last year, it was the top 3 and everybody else. I felt like I was pretty steadfast in saying that even since the beginning of the year. There were other really good teams. There were just I didn't think that there was enough depth in the league. I think the second tier of this league is substantially better. I think St. John's is going to be a real player in the league. Xavier is going to have a good year. Their front court might be the meanest front court in the conference, and that's saying a lot. Providence is going to be really good. Bryce Hopkins comes back. I actually think Butler is going to take another step forward. So you look at that next tier of teams, those guys are going to be in the mix for an NCAA tournament bid, and we know what it is. The coaching is the coaching, and I feel like it's tough each and every night. And in a league where there's a lot of different styles, the talent has certainly upticked, especially among that second tier of teams that I just mentioned. The depth is going to be better, and I even think the bottom is going to be better. The biggest question mark, and Fanta alluded to it, is Villanova. Outside of that, I think Seton Hall's obviously going to compete in that third tier. I think DePaul is going to compete much better this year. They're going to win a couple of games. They're not going to be great. I don't think they're going to make the tournament, but I do think it's going to be substantially better. And Georgetown's going to be a tough out because now they've got 2 guys that can handle the basketball. Defensively could be an issue, but they're going to be better, and they're going to compete in games where last year a lot of times they struggled to do just that. Second tier is better. That's my biggest takeaway about this league, and the top is always as good as what it has been.
Go ahead, Fanta.
Rob, I have one stat for you that I want you to react to because it fits you first and foremost. The top reason does. But when it comes to getting bids, I do believe the committee looks – they won't tell us they look at this, but the committee likes to look good. They like to look smart. The last 2 years, the Big East record in the NCAA tournament, 22-6.
Well, it helps when you have one team that doesn't lose in the tournament.
Yeah.
It helps when you have a team stacking up 12 wins.
And let's also say this. It helps when your top 3 teams are studs. Like all 3 are bona fide, like tough outs, no matter who they played against. That second tier, though, I think it's going to be better this year. And I think you said 6, 5, maybe 6. That's kind of where I would stand with this league too. I think it's going to be a fun league every single night. And the bottom is raised. What is it? Rising tide lifts all boats, or lifts all ships, whatever you want to say. I think it's going to be much better this year in terms of the depth, the quality, the analytics, this, that, and the third. So I think it could be better.
Yeah, you're 100% correct on all that, Fanta. Let's just say that the 22-6 record looks a lot better than 22-9. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise that Providence, St. John's, and Seton Hall were on the outside looking in last year. And T.O., Fanta, I don't know if you caught this, but T.O. definitely just said a rising tide lifts all shits.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Shits.
Yeah, right. A rising tide lifts all shits, and I do believe.
I'm chewing on my own tongue, boys. I'm chewing on my own tongue.
That should you've had a stressful week, man. So I don't blame you. But that should be from now on what the saying is when we say it on the field of 68 of rising tide.
Rising tide lifts all shits. Ships too. Shits as well.
Yeah. All right. So I have
quickly. A lot of damage down here where I'm at. Carolinas, East Tennessee, Western North Carolina. For those who listen in that part of the country, in this part of the country where I'm at, we're thinking about you. It's tough. Hopefully this can bring a little bit of reprieve for the next hour. So it's been tough for a lot of people. We got lucky. Some trees down, some power outages. We were without power for a long time, but we're up and running, and I'm hoping that everybody else gets going soon too.
Yeah, it's actually unfortunate. We were supposed to head down to Greenville. I was supposed to have dinner at the Casa de Tio night, as a matter of fact, but we will not be able to get down there because of a lot of different reasons. But SoCon Media Day went from being a live in-person event in Greenville to being something that we're going to have to stream online and kind of put together. So a little disappointed about that. You know how much I love Greenville, T.O. So and how much I enjoy your darling wife. So it would have been nice to get down there and see everybody. So well said. All right. I have 6 storylines that I've kind of circled here, and we can roll through each one of these. We'll be kind of quick on them because we are all very loquacious. That's the word. Yeah. We talk
verbose is good.
All right. The biggest
verbose is good. Of course, we're using the wrong words half the time. You said invent instead of event. I said shits instead of ships. We're off to a rough start. Fanta, carry us, baby, carry us.
Fanta,
come on, guys.
The biggest storyline in the Big East is the biggest storyline in college basketball this season. UConn is going for a 3-peat. I'm going to frame the conversation like this, right? If anybody other than Dan Hurley is coaching this UConn roster, right, the one that they've put together, where do you have them ranked? If it's not Dan Hurley and it's whoever, an average to above average basketball coach coaching a team with this roster, where do you have them ranked? Because I probably would have them somewhere around like the 15 to 20 range, I would think. Is that crazy, Tio?
No, I think that's about right. I think there's a lot of question marks, especially in the backcourt. And even the front court, Klingen's gone. They're not quite as big because that dude was a massive human. But I would probably put them in that 15 to 20 range. But just because it is Dan Hurley, there's going to be a learning curve with this unit because there's so many new pieces. Who does he rely on from day one? They're going to win a lot of games, don't get me wrong, but there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve.
Well, who doesn't have a learning curve in college basketball? But Connecticut, we said last year they might have one, and guess what? That didn't happen. There was no curve. They just kept rolling. UConn has the best coach in the country. They have the best offensive system in the country. What their offense has turned into is absolutely outstanding. It's like watching poetry in motion. I don't have question at the guard slots because Hassan Diarra and Aiden Mahaney are tough. I think Mahaney's going to be a nice fit for this team, but Diarra, Big East 6th man of the year last year, it feels like all of the waves have led Hassan to get to this island where he is the man, where he is the point guard, where he is the tone setter. He's got that in him. Alex Caravan is a first-team All-American candidate. Liam McNeely is positioned to be one of the best freshmen in all of college basketball. My question does lie in the front court, and that's out of respect for how great Donovan Clingan and Samson Johnson, and before Johnson, Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan were the year previous. Now you're asking Samson Johnson, a solid big man, but somebody who's never had this type of role as the lead horse, and Terrace Reed, the transfer from Michigan, who has shown some good flashes, but now is going to be asked to do more and to come off the bench and do more. I'm curious to see what they look like at the center position.
Yeah, I think the center spot is the big question mark I have.
You're also asking Hassan Diarra, who is terrific, and I've spoke on this as much. I'm a big fan of his. He's a bulldog, and he plays so hard, and he is the Dan Hurley type of dude. He's replacing Tristan Newton, who is back-to-back Final Four most outstanding player. And Cam Spencer, who, as fun as he was to watch for a lot of people, that dude was one of the most unbelievably efficient players, I want to say, in the history of college basketball over the course of one season. He was that good. So Like Mahaney is really good, and I've seen him in person. He's not built like Spencer. Spencer's wide and he's heavy. Mahaney's a little bit slimmer. There's going to be a difference in competition in the Big East and the type of play in the Big East compared to the West Coast Conference. He is talented enough to do it. I do think that it's going to take him a second to kind of adjust to the physicality of the Big East and how that league is played.
Yeah, so my hot take, and Fanny, we talked about this on the UConn offseason pod we did, is that when you're talking about roles offensively, I think we're going to see an Aiden Mahaney in the Tristan Newton role, where he's kind of like the guy at the end of a clock that you put the ball in his hands. We're going to see McNeely in something of the Cam Spencer role, where they run him off of pin downs and run him off of DHOs and kind of put him in positions to be able to make decisions, right, and make choices. And I think Hassan Diarra is going to be kind of the Steph Castle, Andre Jackson secondary facilitator. We're going to put him in a corner. They're not going to use him as like a lob threat, obviously. I think they're going to use him more as like a playing him in the corner, force defenses to have to make a decision on if they're going to guard him or not. I don't know if it's going to work as effectively, and I do think that so much of buying into UConn as a potential national champion is like you are betting everything on the player development within that program, right? You're betting on Jalen Stewart taking a big step forward, Solo Ball taking a big step forward, Alex Caravan going from like a really good piece to the guy. You're betting on Hassan Diarra taking a step forward, Samson Johnson taking a step forward. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I'm excited about it. I think that it's closer, and I guess this gets into the second storyline for me. I think it's closer at the top of the conference with Creighton and Xavier specifically than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I would have Xavier as the third best team, maybe even the second best team in this league. And I think that Creighton, if they get Zugic, is right there as well. But we talked about it like on an episode. When was it? Last week, Fana? We talked about how good Kalkbrenner is. 2 weeks ago, how good Kalkbrenner is. Yeah. I just think that Creighton and Xavier have the horses to be able to make a run here, and you can't count out Marquette either.
Yeah, and let's talk about Xavier, because when you look at Xavier, part of the reason why we're saying this is because of the man at the helm. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to bet against Sean Miller having 2 down years in a row. But I think the thing with them is, when I was talking with their staff at the end of last season, they were so excited knowing they would have Davion McKnight, who can set the table for this team, back for another year. They obviously loved Quincy Oliveri, and he did a lot for them, and obviously he's not back. But I think for them, then it was like, all right, what do we need to do to supplement in the backcourt? Well, what did they do? They got Ryan Conwell from Indiana State, close to 17 points per game last season, 6 rebounds, 3 assists per game. Guys, I think he could be an all Big East first team caliber player if everything pans out. He could be that good. They love him. They love him. They absolutely loved him. They also are very high on a sophomore named Dalen Swain, who they think has a chance to be special this year, has really grown as a player, and has had a really nice offseason. Dante Maddox, they bring in from Toledo, another guy who was – Sean Miller just likes getting buckets, a la Sule Boom, Quincy Oliveri. Well, Dante Maddox, 16 points per game, 3 assists per game, over 4 boards per game. They got these pieces around McKnight in Conwell and Maddox who should really help. I think the biggest thing with Xavier is when it's been so damn long since we have seen Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter functioning, what does it look like when they're back on the floor? And are they at the level that they used to be at? Because I can tell you guys right now, and John Hughley, who I know T.O. will talk about, was a really nice ad. If Fremantle gets to the level that he was at and stays healthy for the entire year, this team could be the second best team in the Big East. And hell, they could challenge UConn for the top spot, because I think the backcourt plays steady. I think Miller's so fired up to have a bounce back year. And I think that front court now is deeper, much deeper than it was last year.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Marcus Foster, who's big on the wing, is going to be able to open up the floor, and he can really guard. But we've alluded to the backcourt and some of the pieces they've added. Trey Green comes back, who was good off the bench for him at times last year. Like, there's just a lot of really good pieces, and I'd rather have too much scoring and then figure it out as opposed to just hoping that some guy is like, well, he's going to take a big step. These guys are proven scorers, so that helps things. Now, you might have to restrict some because you got to be better across the board. You can't have everybody averaging 17 points. There's not enough basketballs, especially in the Big East. But it's good that they're bringing in all these pieces. I just feel, the front court's not getting enough love right now because Fremantle comes back. I'm a fan of Hughley. He's been a tough sucker ever since he got into college. He plays with an edge. He's that kind of guy. Jerome Hunter is back from injury. Now, how they come back from injury is going to be huge. But with all with all the speed in the backcourt, you have big wings on the perimeter that can space the floor. This could turn out to be a really, really good team. I have them right there with Marquette and Creighton, but in that 2, 3, 4 area. Just because I'm still curious on the eligibility concerns with Creighton. What happens there is going to change my mind drastically as far as how high or how low they're going to be. But this is a really good roster that they've put together. And Sean Miller, I mean, he came back with a vengeance. There's not a lot of guys, and you alluded to it, there's not a lot of guys that you can bank on having more than one bad season in a row. Sean qualifies. He's in that space. They're going to be really, really good and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, the amount of perimeter talent that they have is just ridiculous, and obviously, picking them to compete with UConn is a bet on the health of Zach Fremantle, which is worrisome. Like, when was the last time we saw him have a completely healthy season? It's been like 3 years, so hopefully he stays that way. And then on a note outside of basketball, it's nice that we are talking about Jerome Hunter potentially having a chance to return to the sport, because what he dealt with was really, really scary last year. Real quick on Creighton, you're mentioning Fedor Zugic, who is a piece that they brought in from the Bundesliga, a Montenegrin 20-year-old, a 6'6" wing that can really, really, really shoot the ball. And if he is
played 200 professional games already.
We know how you feel, T.O.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm done blasting the kid because the kid hasn't done anything wrong. He's just taking advantage of what's in front of him. But he's a massive difference maker, because I'm not going to say there's a hole on the wing, but there is room for a guy like him on the wing.
And was a stud at the FIBA U20 Euro Championships. All tournament team averaged 18-3-3.
Yeah,
no
really
slouch
good.
at that tournament.
He averaged 12 points in the Euro Cup. And that's grown ass men. That's not a bunch of U20 cats. That's grown ass men. He's getting buckets against those people. And I'm not going to get into all the particulars.
Yeah.
But this guy, like, they were like, well, he never signed a contract. That's horseshit. The Germans are the Germans are the most austere humans on the planet. They follow every rule to a T. Montenegro is not in the European Union. There's no way he could have lived and worked in Germany. There's no way without a contract. Miss me with this bullshit. However,
you've now said the S word 3 times.
I know. I'm going to keep using it too. But he is, he is a really good player if they can get him eligible. But some of this facade that they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes about this kid's insane.
So you're saying German people are liars?
No, I'm saying the German people. I'm not saying the German people.
My grandma's German. You better be careful, T.O.
I'm not. I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying they follow rules like unbelievably. Like this. That's what they do at this point in the year of our Lord 2024.
So I'm gonna take over the wheel. I'm gonna get us back.
All right. Sorry if he's there.
Well, I'll just say with Creighton, like we 2 pods ago, we had a long conversation about what this team could be. So I don't want to rehash it too in depth. But Kalkbrenner might be the most underrated superstar in college
recent memory
season, and
recent memory.
One of the most dominant big men that you're going to find, and I'll be very curious to see who everybody picks as their preseason Big East Player of the Year, because I think it's very hard to go against the big fella there. Stephen Ashworth is back. Pop Isaacs is there. I think that's a really good combination of kind of putting guards together, and there's a couple of interesting pieces there, and I think they can be pretty good. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. I want to elaborate a little bit more on Marquette. Both Marquette and Providence are replacing superstars in Devin Carter and Tyler Kolek, who were just two of the best point guards in college basketball, period, last season, and both of whom are going to be playing in the NBA next year, assuming Devin Carter's shoulder gets back to the point where he can play. Who is in a better position to replace those two? Fanta.
Restate the question.
Who did? Tyler Kolek's gone. Devin Carter's gone. Providence and Marquette both lost a superstar point guard. Who are you betting on to have a better season, I guess? Who's better positioned to replace their superstar?
I would say Providence. I would say Providence is in a better position. Look, Marquette has terrific roster continuity, and that's a very nice trait to have in this climate. I also just wonder if maybe getting a transfer or two would have helped this team be in a better place than where I think they're going to be this season. I'm just wondering if they have enough to be able to do the things that they want to do. Doesn't mean that they can't, and I think Cam Jones is one of the best players in the Big East, and I like David Joplin and Ben Gold, but with Providence, they cleaned up. They had a priority list. They got Wesley Cardette from Chicago State, Jabri Abdur-Rahim from Georgia, Bensley Joseph comes in from Miami, not to mention Jaden Pierre's back. I think if Pierre can be consistent, then last year Carter had to play more point. He was like a combo of a 1 and 2 doing both jobs for Providence throughout much of last season. They relied on him to do so much. I think what the question is, Tyler Kolek, it's hard to fully duplicate his numbers of efficiency. It's hard to duplicate what Carter did because Carter was the best player in the Big East. But the way I look at the question is, which team is better positioned to potentially fill what that person did? And I think it's Providence because of the amount of roster reinforcements they got and the fact that Bryce Hopkins is back. And if Bryce Hopkins is healthy and playing to the level that he's capable of, he's one of the best players in the Big East. So I'm going to say that the Friars are better positioned to replace what they lost. I think Marquette's going to have to be very, very different, having lost Tyler Kolek, because Kolek was just such an efficient point guard. And it's impossible to expect that same level of efficiency from somebody that's now on this roster.
Can I push back? Because I actually disagree. I think that it's Marquette. And that's not to say that I don't think that Providence is going to be good, because I think that they're a tournament team. I think that they're a top 30 to 35 team in America. But I think that with Cam Jones coming back, I fully expect him to, one, step into the point guard role this year, and two, put together a season that puts him in the mix for like first team All-American, Big East Player of the Year. Kind of, I've heard really good things about him coming out of Marquette from the summer and the fall. The other part of it is your boy Ben Gold, T.O., I think is going to have a monster season at the 5. He's been shooting the hell out of it throughout the kind of the summer and the fall. And if he's making shots and you got David Joplin making shots, like all of a sudden you're going to have to make real decisions on how the hell you're going to guard this team. Now,
well, I was actually going to ask you, like, who is a bigger loss, Tyler Kolek or Oso Ighodaro? I thought I think Oso Ighodaro, what he was able to do from a passing perspective, kind of being, the fulcrum where that offense, like Tyler Kolek could just get rid of it and then pick his spots. Like Oso Ighodaro was incredible at that 5 spot for what they like to do and playing so open. I mean, it's going back to what your question was, Marquette or Providence. They do it in completely different ways, but I'm curious about more so the 5 spot at Marquette, because that could change basically how they operate if Ben Gold's hitting shots, like you said.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% correct about Oso. He's awesome. I think Kolek's the bigger void that they have to fill. I think that it is easier to fill that when you have Cam Jones, if that makes sense. But I love Cam Jones. I love the combination of Stevie Mitchell and Chase Ross kind of being the head of the snake defensively. Sean Jones, if they're there. The one question I would have is like, which one of the youngsters is going to be able to step up and kind of be the rotation guy, right? Like you got the 3 sophomores and a couple freshmen coming in this year. Like you're going to have probably 2 or 3 of those guys be able to play 15 minutes a game in the Big East, which is, I mean, that's a big ask, but I'm at the point where I just trust Shaka's player development within the system, and I think they're going to find a way to figure it out. And I think the best player out of those 2 groups is going to be Cam Jones. So I'll ride with Marquette here. T.O., be the tiebreaker. You got to make it.
Who's more prepared right now? It's Marquette, because Kolek missed games at the end of last year, so they kind of had a preview of what was going to happen. So that's a big thing. Who I think reload, like, I'm not saying Marquette's right. I'm not saying Providence is like, but Providence.
You said Marquette's right. You said Rob is smarter than Fanta. That's what just happened.
I do like the pieces that Providence added in the backcourt, because you add 2 different kind of guys with Bensley Joseph and Wesley Cardette. Cardette's a bucket, and he's a bulldog and pit bull in how he does it. Not quite the shooter that Devin Carter turned himself into, but at the same time, he scored everywhere he's been. He was at Samford and Chicago State, but he coming out of high school, he's a top 60 recruit in the country. So this is a super talented kid. Fernandez comes back. He's going to be able to space the floor a little bit, be a defensive guy. I like all these pieces that Providence added. Jabri Abdur-Rahim's going to be able to play his role. He's a Northeast kid. He gets to go back up in that part of the country. I think he's going to have another good year. As far to me, these 2 guys are apples and oranges. Like I think somebody from Marquette's going to step up, whether that's Sean Jones, whether it's Trey Norman could step up and have a bigger role. It's apples and oranges, but I think both of them piece together things that are going to work in their own favor. But Cam Jones, is he going to, like, balancing scoring 25 points and getting 6-7 assists? That's a tough thing to do. So somebody's going to have to take a little bit of that scoring load off of him. And is he willing to let them do that? Like that's another piece of it. And Shaka's going to, get that into him going into the season. But still, I mean, you need him to be your bucket, because he is your bucket. Who's going to be that other guy that kind of just at least gets it up the floor? Give my man a break.
I think there's layers to the argument. I think it's 2 separate questions of who's better positioned to fill what they lost versus who we think will be the better team. And when it comes down to it, no one's going to do what Tyler Kolek did, and nobody on Providence is going to have the exact season that Devin Carter had last year. My concern with Providence is just, and I had this concern last year, I ended up eating my words, it is the front court. Josh Oduro last year, I wasn't sure if he'd be able to handle the load, and he did. I mean, he handled it with flying colors. This year, can Crease DeSandico come in from St. Joe's and play the 5 and do it at a high level? Whereas Marquette, like, I know what I'm getting from Joplin, and I think I know what I'm getting from Ben Gold. And I expect, like you said, for Chase Ross and Sean Jones and Zayd Lowry and Trey Norman to deliver. And they bring in a couple of freshmen as well, Royce Parham. And then look out for Caden Hamilton as well.
Yeah,
so,
who redshirted last year smartly, and he could have an impact as well. I like that call, Fanta.
Yep. Christ,
Anton Bonk. Don't forget Bonk.
Yeah, you got to
feel like we just have to mention Bonk. He's massive. He barely played at his Eastern Arizona Community College, wherever the hell he was. He's massive. He's got tools. He might play some.
Yeah, and if you don't mention him, then you're going to have 800 Twitter mentions just saying you got bonked. You're going to get bonked.
Yeah. He's got a lot of tools. He's got a lot of learning to do. He's got a lot of tools, but he's got a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, and at A10 Media Day last year, I called the 7-foot redshirt sophomore center for Providence, Christ Essendoko. So I just want to put it out there. So one of the two of us probably got close to how to pronounce his name the correct way. So 50-50 shot there. All right. Rick Pitino in his second seasons at schools. I just want to put this into your mind. At BU, in his second season, his first season, they were Division I independent. His second season, they got into the ECAC and they won the league. At Providence, his first season, they were okay. Second season, they make it to a Final Four. At Kentucky, in his second season, they won the SEC and set themselves up for that run that they had in the early and mid-90s. At Louisville, after going to the NIT his first season, the second year, they went 25-7 and finished third in a loaded Conference USA. And at Iona, he went from 9th place in his first year to first place in the MAC in his second season. So, T.O., what will the Johnnies be this year in the Big East in Rick Pitino's second season in Queens?
What did he say last year where he wanted to go jump off the bridge? Was it?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Thunder and Lightning taking over New York. That's going to be Davon Smith, Kaderi Richmond. I love the combination because of the different ways they come at you, the change of pace. He's always had kind of teams like that, whether he went super small at the 1s and 2s where he had with Russ Smith and some of these teams at Louisville. He's always had these uber quick guards. I love the fit with Pitino and Kaderi Richmond, because Richmond's effort has been up and down throughout the course of his college career. It was great last year, but his effort's been up and down. You don't give second fiddle effort with Rick Pitino. I think we're going to get the best version of him this year on top of what we already saw was a terrific year last year at Seton Hall. And Smith is just a jitterbug. He's so fast. He can attack the rim. I thought he was good last year at Utah. It's going to come down to those two guards, but I think there's a lot of pieces there. Was it RJ Luis? Am I pronouncing that right? RJ Lewis had surgery in the offseason, says his legs feel great. Another really good player, 11 points a game. I think this team fits him. And a couple of big guys they added. Was it Iwuchukwu, who had that medical concern at Southern Cal? He's got a lot of length. He's a shot blocking guy, fits kind of that mold of a Rick Pitino 5-man. This is going to be a really good team. How far can that backcourt take you? Simeon Wilcher, who I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that he stuck around, because the details of his recruitment, wherever he was going to North Carolina and then he leaves and goes to St. John's, it seemed kind of like a bit of a flight risk. Not the case. Hung around. He's going to continue under Rick Pitino. Now he has an opportunity to be a big factor off the bench. I like Brady Dunlap, who can space it out and shoot the ball a little bit. Seemed to get more comfortable as the year went along. I think they're going to be a really tough out. They're in that second tier for me.
Yeah, Aaron Scott. So you didn't mention Aaron Scott. I don't think the kid from North Texas that can shoot it. That can.
No, I didn't. But average right at 11 points a game. But a really good shooter, space it out, fits that mold. They're going to be really good. They're going to be really good in that second tier of teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that they're right on the borderline of preseason top 25. I really like them. And Fanta, look, it's another trend. You got a Seton Hall player transferring to St. John's. These like intra rivalry transfers are going to drive me insane. Like, what are we doing here? But St. John's got Kadari.
They got Kadari Richmond. That was a mammoth get for them when they were able to reel him in. And St. John's will be at Seton Hall Saturday, January the 18th at the Prudential Center. In what should be quite a Saturday metropolitan game in mid-January, MLK Day weekend. The Red Storm will host Seton Hall Saturday, March 1st. That game is at Carnesecca. I think it's there for a reason. St. John's is very I do think that they prefer to not have Seton Hall come to the Garden, where they're very close to MSG. They want them on their campus. That rivalry's real. And there's bad blood there, and there's nothing wrong with that. It fuels everything. I think that with St. John's, what you think of them is determined by two things: how much you're willing to buy their three-point shooting, and how much you're willing to buy the idea that Zubi Ejiofor and Vincent Iwuchukwu can function game in and game out against the Ryan Kalkbrenners, Samson Johnsons, Eric Dixons, Zach Fremantles of the world. This team has two players, right, that have got to make shots. It's quite simple. Davon Smith, who shot 41% from three last year, the previous 3 seasons hovered around 27% from three. Now there's volume there, too.
Yeah, he was asked to do a lot at Georgia Tech. He's asked to do it a lot. Yeah.
Right. But that's a big difference, Tio. It is.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Kadari Richmond, 27% from three last year. The year previous to that, 44%. Can he get somewhere in between there? Aaron Scott, 37% from three a year ago. This team has got to be able to make threes. Simeon Wilcher and Brady Dunlap are going to be very critical to that as well. And I'm with you. When you look at their roster, you would have thought that they lost Simeon Wilcher with the amount of other guards that they brought in. So how does Rick Pitino balance getting the best out of Wilcher in year 2 versus the other veteran guards who have signed on and agreed to a good amount of money to play at St. John's and to be part of that equation? We will see. RJ Lewis, when he was healthy last year, made all the difference. Two things. One, St. John's blew out Seton Hall in the Big East tournament on the quarterfinal Thursday to make the semifinals for the first time in almost 25 years. And it was because Lewis was healthy. And by the way, who came the closest to UConn in March? St. John's. St. John's gave them a game in the Big East semifinals. UConn did win. It didn't feel like UConn was ever really going to lose, but UConn obliterated their opponents in the NCAA tournament. They won their 6 combined games by a combined 140. And in that game against St. John's, they got tested. We hit the under 4 timeout in the second half, and we were like, it's a ball game. You never know what can happen. Now it's time for St. John's to package together results in November and December. They, more than anybody, got hurt last year by not doing enough in their non-conference, by getting blown out by Michigan. When you look at their non-conference schedule, they have 2 crucial areas. Number 1, Bahamas Championship against Baylor, top 10 team, and then either Tennessee, top 10 or 15 team, or Virginia. Got to get one.
It's going to be a good MTE. Holy smokes. It's going to be a good MTE. Same place we were at, Rob.
Terrific MTE.
You think they'll fly us back down again?
No. Would be awesome.
Terrific MTE. Then they face Georgia in the Bahamas. Not an easy game. It would appear that Mike White has a team that is ready to take the next step down there at Georgia. The other game is a home game on Saturday, December 7th against Kansas State. Those are the 2 areas. Trip to the Bahamas, home game against Kansas State. You'd really like to go 3-1 in that stretch. You'd really like to find a way to 3 wins in that stretch, because I think you should beat Kansas State at Carnesecca. Georgia on a neutral, I would take St. John's. And you got to get a split in your MT. They do that and they avoid any bye game losses. They're going to go into Big East play. They're going to be in a very nice position to get a 6 or a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yep, I agree. I think they're really good. I think they're really, really good. All right. Storyline number 5. T.O., is this the end of the Kyle Neptune era?
It could be. It could be. And we guys, this is the part of the job we all don't love so much, but it is part of the job. The talent is there again. They got Eric Dixon, who's a fix-it, who's Mr. Fix-It for everything. It's that you have to start there, because defensively he's never in the wrong spot. He's probably the strongest human in the conference, and that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of tough dudes in the Big East.
Half the size of Christmas hams.
That's right. Big old Eric Christmas Hams Dixon. I'm just going to let you have that one. So, no, I think it starts and ends with him. Jameer Brickus, they're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. Is he going to be able to change or adapt? Because he's not the biggest guy. He has been good. They basically just brought together the Big Five All-Stars and then Wooga Poplar. So the talent is good enough to win in the league. Do they make the tournament? I think it's going to be hard. Wooga Poplar has to have a massive year. Gaval Yugov, a freshman that they got, I want to say from Bulgaria. Am I correct in saying that? Talented guard, bigger. How often have freshmen had a lot of success in the Big East? It's been tough. It scares me, because some of these guys they brought in, I just don't know. Tyler Perkins, good player, good enough to make a massive impact in the Big East, tough. So wait and see. Could be his last year. I'm not in tune with that part of the job like you two gentlemen are, but they need to win some, and they need to show some progression.
Yeah, I'm not buying them being able to have that kind of a season, to be able to win at the level that they need to be able to win. I would make the argument that this is the least talented team that
he's had since he's been there. I would agree.
Yeah, the least talented team. Just to rehash for everybody, his first year, Eric Dixon, Cam Whitmore, Justin Moore was there. You had Brandon Slater, you had Caleb Daniels. All of those guys were really good players. Last season, let's just rehash what this was. You had Eric Dixon, who was probably the best player on the team. TJ Bamba was a top 20 transfer target for everybody. Justin Moore, he was back, he was healthy, he was 2 years removed from the Achilles injury. Tyler Burton was a guy from Richmond that pretty much everybody wanted in the transfer portal. You brought in Akeem Hart, another guy that a lot of people wanted in the transfer portal. Brendan Housen, I don't think he's missed a shot since he's been at Kansas State working out over there. Like, he's had a very good spring and the summer with that program. And I would make the argument that on paper, both of those teams are better than what they have on paper this year. And if
all their habits disappeared, it was the craziest thing, and they disappeared so quickly. Like all the habits that Jay Wright instilled there for so many years, they just disappeared. And it's hard to explain, but they need to show some progression, and he's going to have to show progression without what a lot of people would say would be his worst talented team since he's been there. They're still talented, but we're comparing like guys that won a national championship and made a Final Four. So it's still a lot.
Yeah, I can't.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I like Kyle. He's well dressed. He's always been good to me. I can't see it with this group. And if there's a third straight year at Villanova where things are trending this way, when so much about success in college basketball in this day and age depends on being able to get people from the outside the program to spend their own money to help facilitate and build these rosters, I have a hard time seeing how people see that downward trend and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to open up my pocketbook and here is some money to help us rebuild with Kyle Neptune at the helm. So, Fan, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add on that or you want to chime in, but that's kind of where I'm at.
We haven't seen Villanova miss the tournament 3 consecutive years since they went through a 6-year gap from 1999 to 2005. The standards have changed. When you win 2 national championships in 3 seasons, it lifts everything up. I don't care who the head coach is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they have taken a significant step back from Jay Wright, and this is not Kyle's fault in particular, because I think we see it across organizations. You don't want to be the guy who replaces the guy.
Yeah.
It's a really hard spot to be in. I think that Kyle Neptune, when you went around Fordham in his 1 year there, people were elated with everything that was happening. And Keith Ergo was on his staff.
Mm-hmm.
And then look what Keith is doing. Look what Keith is doing right now. He's gotten Fordham to be respectable in their league. I just think that for Villanova, it's NCAA tournament or bust. And I think when you look at that roster, it's hard to think unless Eric Dixon, Wooga Poplar, and Jordan Longino force this unexpected, surprising 3-headed monster. It's hard to think that they're a tournament roster. And by God, Eric Dixon better stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. By God.
Yep. All right. There are 4 teams that we haven't mentioned yet: Seton Hall, Butler, Georgetown, and DePaul. I think most people are going to have those 4 teams kind of pegged as NIT at best kind of programs heading into the season. So
I have Butler ahead of Villanova.
Well, I have. We'll get into the power rankings in a little bit.
Yeah.
I have Villanova below some of those teams as well. But I'm just kind of saying we haven't talked about these 4 teams. And I want to make sure we don't get yelled at for not mentioning teams on the Big East preview, T.O. I'm trying to cover all of our bases here. So
I hear you.
What are you going to do when we have an 18-team league?
I'm just going to
literally
what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the rosters, and for Minnesota, I'm just going to read off the top 5 names on the roster so I can say to Minnesota fans, I got you covered. Don't worry about it. We broke your team down. Here are your 5 starters. Moving on. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's too much. We need less than 18 teams in a conference. It's insane. It's insane.
You just need to talk about Dawson Garcia that game.
Yep.
Yeah,
all right. Which one of those 4 do you think has the best chance, T.O., of getting to the NCAA tournament, maybe climbing into the top half of the Big East?
If I had to pick one, it would be Butler, because they got size and they got skill at certain positions. I've been a fan of Jamie Kaiser ever since high school. He goes to Maryland, doesn't really show out as well as what I thought he was capable of. Now he goes to Thad Matta and Butler. I think he could have a little bit of an emergence. Patrick McCaffrey also jumps in. So you have size, you have some shooting, you have some ability there. I liked some of the pieces that they put on that roster to go with Pierre Brooks, who averaged right at 15 a game, to go with Telford, who was right at 14 a game. I feel like Butler, after they took a leap this year, I feel like they're going to continue to get better by just a little bit, because there is this plateau that you can hit as a team, and getting over that next hump is really, really difficult. But I do think you're going to see incrementally better play from the Butler Bulldogs. And I think
do they have a point guard? Butler. That's my
It'll be Kobe King. It'll be
Kobe King from Tulane.
I don't know, man. Yeah, from Tulane. He'd start here at St. John's. That one's going to be tough. I mean, that's their question is point guard and center. I think it's Seton Hall. I do. Seton Hall, to me, can be a tournament team. When put in the group that you just put together for this question, I'm going to go with the Pirates, because I think Scotty Middleton is about to bloom as a star. Former 4-star recruit. Seton Hall recruited him originally, went to Ohio State, did not work out. Now at Seton Hall, I've been told he had a huge summer. Just got in the gym, worked on everything with this game. This guy was very talented in high school. Sometimes it just takes time for it to fully come into fruition in college. Shaheen Holloway knows how to get the best out of his players. Middleton can be a stud. They brought in Chauncey Jenkins from Old Dominion. Solid rotational piece. I think he's in the starting 5. I think he's a good player. Dylan Adewusu is back. Experienced Big East player. Is he a great player? No. Is he a player that you want on your roster that's a good player? Yes. Where am I getting to with this? Yasin Toomey from Evansville. Emmanuel Okorafor. We don't know what to really expect, but he comes in from Louisville. Prince Alibe from Boston College. A former 4-star recruit in Gus Yalden. Didn't work out at Wisconsin, but they got him. Isaiah Coleman poised to take a leap in year 2. And don't sleep on Garway Dual, who last year threw a punch in the Bahamas and went downhill from there in 1 year at Providence. But if you look at his body, he fell apart. But if you look at his body, you're like, man, there's got to be something there. When I talk with Shaheen's staff, the thought in mind is they're not going to necessarily have a guy who averages 16 or 17 points per game. They're going to have 8 guys who average between 7 and 11 or 12 points per game. I don't know if that works in the Big East every night. Here's what I do know. Gene Holloway went to an Elite 8 doing that.
Yeah, I think
won a championship doing similar things.
Yeah, I mean,
look, Zion Harmon too.
Yeah, if you just got a bunch of
Zion Harmon's a good player, man. Like he was a highly touted dude and ended up going to a couple of different places, but they're solidified at point guard. That dude's about as safe with the basketball as you're going to find. He is small, but there are pieces around him. I'm a fan of Aligbe. I think he's a good player. He was a good player at Boston College, just not a huge offensive threat. But he fits the Shaheen Holloway mold, the toughness and length, and be able to rebound and get on the floor. A lot of really good players. Go ahead, John.
Solid schedule, too. Nothing too crazy. Charleston Classic, doable. Oklahoma State in their Big 12 game. They got screwed with Baylor and Kansas the last couple of years. Like, racking up wins, Rob, when you're a team like that, that's sometimes all you got to do. You just got to get into the boat. It's Josh.
Yeah, no, I look there. I will say this, and I mean this with the utmost respect. Seton Hall is going to be a pain in the ass to play against.
Yeah,
I think with the pieces that they have, and I think that's going to be enough to get them enough wins where they're like at the very least in the mix for the on the bubble, right? They're going to kind of be there. I think that so I guess I'm the one that got to get stuck talking about Georgetown and DePaul. I actually think that the bottom of the Big East, you're not going to have 2 horrible teams.
No,
I don't
think so either.
DePaul went 3-29 last year, 0-20 in the Big East. That ain't happening again. Like they got
No.
shooters, they got guys that can pass and move the ball. I think that Chris Holtman is a better coach than what we saw towards the end of his Ohio State tenure. He kind of knows a little bit about what's going on in the Big East from his time when he was at Butler. And I'm just kind of I'm in on them in terms.
Dude, DePaul has so many shooters, it's crazy.
Yes, they have so many shooters, and they got a bunch of versatile pieces, and they got a bunch of guys that can kind of like be playmakers. I'm in on them finding a way to be able to kind of put this together enough that they are like a look. You win 15 games, you go 5-15 in the Big East. I don't think that that's out of the question. I think that's a good year for them. To me, that's kind of like what the floor is for this group this year. I think that they can get there. I think that they're going to be a tough out this season. And then with you kind of touched on it earlier with Georgetown, T.O., but
Tough
like
out.
yeah, they have a couple of really good guards. I like the addition of Jordan Burks. I like the addition of Micah Peavy. I think that
Malik Mack.
Yeah, Malik Mack is going to be really, really good, and him and Jaden Epps are going to put up a lot of points and probably not going to play too much defense. But the question I have is just,
but at least they got one side of the ball. Like Rowan Brumbaugh he killed him on both sides of the ball, and yet you felt like you had to play him because you felt like you had to develop him, and he just wasn't good enough. Rank Rowan should have never been a thing.
Yeah, that's good for you. My only concern is that you have so many freshmen that are going to be playing important roles. And
I want to say something about that because I love it. I love it.
Yeah, but does the win-loss column love it this year? That
I think those two guards will keep you in games. Micah Peavy will make like this toughness play at the end of the game that might win you a game. Like they're not going to win 15 games to Big East, but you're going to see improvement in the record. I think that double-digit wins is fully within the realm of possibility.
Double-digit Big East wins.
No, period.
Okay.
Period.
Wait,
10 to
hold on a
10
minute.
to 15 wins.
Okay, yeah. They won 9 games last year.
Yeah, well, but okay, sure, but like 13 to 16, is that better?
Yeah, but I have to be real too, and I think Ed Cooley would say the same thing. Like, if you're Georgetown, you can't just win like 2 or 3 Big East games. You've got to, this year they got to win 7 or 8 Big East games. It should be on there. They should win 7 or 8 Big East games with what they're doing, with what they're trying to package together. Like, if he's going 5-15 in the Big East, we're going to be talking at the end of the season saying, what's going on now? Like, what more can we say about Georgetown?
No,
When this hire was made, everybody was saying, okay, how much of a traditional brand they are and how many assets they have and resources they have. And I think that I believe that to an extent. I think that it's different in 2024 than it even was in like 2014. You've got to turn a corner this season. You can't be in the same pit of mud that you were in last season. You got to give people reason to say, yes, now Georgetown is on the rise. I think this team will do that, but they have to, and Cooley has to. They cannot have a season like they had last year. That was embarrassing.
It was, but they have to show that they're going to compete. I don't necessarily think that they have to win 7 or 8 games. I think 4 or 5, 6 is in like that'd be fine, but you have to show progression. I think they will show progression.
Yeah.
And to get back to the 7 out of his 13 scholarships are freshmen.
Yes.
So like I like that, and the reason that I say I like it is because the COVID year is about over. You're going to be able to be able to get some continuity going. You're going to be able to keep some of these other pieces involved, and now you get to grow with these guys a little bit, and you're almost ahead of the curve a little bit there. It's going to take some time, but this team will compete. They're not going to go 0 forever against the Big East. I think 4, 5, 6 wins is entirely within the realm of possibility, with the chance of those two guards going on. I have 30, you have 30 games. Mm-hmm. So like, I think there's going to be some games where they just catch fire. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was just going to say, and of the transfers that they brought in, yes, Micah Peavy is a 5th-year guy, but Malik Mack is a sophomore. Jordan Brooks is a sophomore. Curtis Williams is a sophomore. Yeah. I'm in on kind of Drew Fielder's long-term upside. Like, I think that if you are a Georgetown fan, you kind of have to mentally accept the fact that this is like a 2-year, maybe a 3-year kind of a deal. But if you buy into this idea that they've built the foundation of a program, which I think that they have,
yeah,
and it's not going to be easy to do, like, because at the end of the year, there's going to be guys like the new kid from New Zealand that they're bringing in. Like if he ends up being a 12 to 15 minute a game, who's got a chance to be really good. But if he's a 12-minute a game guy, like someone's going to say, hey, look, you know what? They're not using you right at Georgetown. Come on over here and we'll find a way to make sure that you so
and those freshmen that they're bringing in too fit Cooley perfectly. So like Thomas Sorber, we saw him, big physical kid, 6'9", really strong. Kayvon Mulready, there's not one that fits him better than him, in my opinion. Kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy. I like where the program's heading. It's not going to end up in a winning record, or it might end up right at 500 for the season. But I just there's going to be improvement, and I think the foundation with this unit is being built at Georgetown. It might not all come this year, but to me, as they piece
shocked
together,
if it all comes this year. But
To me, like the way these pieces are together over the next two, it's going to be really interesting.
My argument was not that they're going to hit it big this year. But there's got to be something in between going 2-18 in the Big East when the 2 wins were against a DePaul team that had gone on vacation in December and winning 11 Big East games. There's an in between there. And it's not 4 or 5 Big East wins, it's 6 or 7 Big East wins, and it's time for them to get there. And I think that they will. I do think Malik Mack is poised to just have a huge year. One thing in particular, Jaden Epps took so many shots last year. Yeah. Malik Mack took a lot for Harvard too. How does that dynamic work? And Rob, do we see Jordan Burke show us what the potential was about, the Kentucky transfer?
Yeah, I like Burks. He's just going to be that glue guy, do everything, hustle, get some steals, get some rebounds, come off the bench, be your sixth man, your prototypical glue guy. So my guess would be like 6 to 7 wins for Georgetown. And if they're playing better at the end of the year than they are at the start of the year, to me, that is like you need to. It's kind of hard to define, but you need to see that they are getting better and that the framework of making a run of the tournament is set at the end of this year for next year, if that makes sense.
I also think they absolutely missed on 2 guys last year. Like I thought Ismail Massoud was, and I thought Rowan Brumbaugh was, and they just missed on him, and they were asking him to do too much. I don't think they missed in the portal this year.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. All right, power rankings. I'll go first, and you guys can argue with me. I would have UConn first, Xavier second, Creighton third, Marquette fourth. To me, that's kind of the top tier. I think it's more of a 4-team tier than like UConn and then the next 3. Maybe I'm just trying to, as UConn fans would say, being a fake fan, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. I have St. John's 5th, Providence 6th. To me, that's the next tier. You can go either way with those 2. Then I would have Butler and Seton Hall in that kind of like next grouping in terms of like bubble teams, potential, like try to maybe sneak their way into the back end of the tournament. And then Georgetown, Villanova, and DePaul as my bottom.
Damn.
So I'm out on Villanova. I don't see it this year.
No kidding.
I don't see it. So
go ahead, John.
Wow. So if I were to tier it out, I'll give you the tiers in the order here. UConn's in its own tier. They're tier 1. They're number 1, and they're on their own island. They're on their own island until someone comes on the island and takes it from them. This will lead to somebody reviewing the podcast saying I'm yelling. 2 and 3. I'm going to go with Creighton 2, Xavier 3. I really have given thought to Xavier 2. But I'll go Creighton 2 because they have made the second weekend of the NCAA Tournament 3 of the last 4 years. So they're kind of in their own tier then themselves. Tier 3 is where things get interesting. If you told me it'd be Providence, Marquette, St. John's, Providence, Marquette, St. John's, Marquette, Providence, I could believe any of them. Providence, St. John's, Marquette, whatever. They're tier 3. And they are 4, 5, and 6. Seton Hall, Butler, and Villanova are my 7, 8, 9. Georgetown, DePaul, 10, 11.
UConn, Creighton, Marquette, Xavier, tier 1, in that order. And then I would go St. John's, Providence, Butler, Villanova, Seton Hall, which I'm starting to think I have them a little too low. And then I'm going DePaul and Georgetown with I think very visible improvement from those bottom two.
Remember, somebody's got to finish last.
Yeah, I know. But I think you see substantial improvement with those last two.
Yeah, I can't. You know what's going to happen is Laval Jordan, who is now the general manager over at DePaul, is going to see this, and I think that we're going to be on a group text with Val, probably like 10 minutes after this thing is public. So we'll see. Shout out to Laval Jordan, who he makes Kyle Neptune look like the second best dressed man in the Big East. Let's just put it like that.
Hey, DePaul, longest power conference NCAA tournament drought, 21 years when 25 rolls around. They have not made it since 2004.
That was the Conference USA team. Yep. They had two pros on that team. There were seven.
Wilson Chandler?
Yeah, Wilson Chandler. Yeah, he played in the NBA for like 100 years. So
yeah.
You know, I can't help but say this, and I do. It's kind of amazing to me that they did not make the NCAA tournament with Max Strus and Paul Reed on their team.
Yeah.
They didn't even come close. Like they had two pros. That was Dave Lato, part 1, 2004. Do you think here's where I'm kind of at. If Chris Holtmann can't have them hanging around the bubble at some point in his tenure, and like maybe they get in, who can? Like, I like the hire a lot. He's going to bring that staff is loaded with really good guys. If not now, then when? If not like this year, but I'm saying if not in this tenure, like Holt's a good coach. He knows what limitations can look like with a program. Like he was at Butler. They went to the Sweet 16 under him. I got to think if I could put $100, if you just gave me $100 to make a back end Big East wager, I would say right now, kind of a bolder one, that this DePaul tournament drought thing curse will end under Holtmann. So I'm going to give me $100 to invest. He's not going to get fired. He's a good coach for them. Give him 4 years. I'll throw $100 on that.
I do find it interesting
to make it.
If you look at these big football brands, when it comes to some of these coaches that go from Butler, you get to a Sweet 16, then you take Ohio State because they basically back up the Brinks truck. But I said this about Shaka too. At those big football brand schools, you have to win the offseason as well. Sometimes that's not what's best for a basketball program long term. And I think we've seen the proof in the pudding there with Shaka at Marquette and how he went from Texas to there. And now he can get his kind of guy at DePaul. Now, I'm not necessarily against what you just said. I think it's possible that after 2-3 years, they might be back in the mix. And I think they're going to have some games where people kind of raise their eyebrows because they're going to hit 15 to 23s in a game.
Yes.
Like that's the kind of roster that they put together there.
Yeah.
And hell of a staff. Laval, Mullins, what was it? Southern Illinois, dude, a hell of a staff that he was able to hire.
For the record, like adding Mullins, who
should never have been fired.
Yeah, whose father is one of the I can't remember the name of the program that he runs, but it's a really big AAU program in Illinois.
Illinois Wolves.
Illinois Wolves, yeah, that's an important addition there. All right, the all-league team. So I put 6 players on my first team all-league team because the Big East 6 players on their first team all Big East team. It's what the conference does. Fanta, my single biggest complaint about your tenure as working at the Big East is that you have not gotten this changed. You don't play with 6 players in basketball. You play with 5 players in basketball. We got to get this fixed. You got to get this right, Big East. Val, you have one job moving forward. Get 5 players on your first team all-conference team. Anyway, I have Cam Jones. I have Ryan Conwell. I have Kadari Richmond. I have Alex Carabin. I have Eric Dixon. And I have Ryan Kalkbrenner. And I will be going with Ryan Kalkbrenner as my Big East preseason player of the year. Anything on there you disagree with, Fans RTO? Either one.
Go ahead.
No, I just went. I think Ryan Conwell. The word out of Cincinnati must be insane. But I went Kalkbrenner, Caravan, Cam Jones, Kadari Richmond, and Eric Dixon. I think Eric Dixon, he averaged 16 and a half and 6.5 last year. That's not going anywhere. They're going to rely on him so much. Kadari's going to, I actually think he's going to just flourish under Pitino. I think that's going to be great. Cam's going to have all the opportunity, and Caravan has been awesome. So Kalkbrenner, my preseason player of the year for sure.
Yeah, Alex Caravan is my Big East preseason player of the year. I think that's how the coaches are going to vote. I just have this gut feeling that they're going to be like, you know,
of course they are, man. Nobody wants to give Dan Hurley bulletin board material. Okay, and
I just think that's so crazy because, like, and you're right, Fanta, but like, Kalkbrenner's 17.3 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, and over 3 blocks. He's a 3-time reigning defensive player of the year, and we're not going to freaking give him the preseason player of the year.
Maybe he will get it, and if he does, it'd be certainly a proper fitting selection. Caravan, Cam Jones, Eric Dixon, Kadari Richmond, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and if I'm putting a 6th on there, I'm between Ryan Conwell because of what I've heard. Zach Fremantle even got some love for me. I could see like a Pierre Brooks or Jameel Telfort being on the radar. Being on the radar. One of them will make the second team. But I am going to go with Bryce Hopkins with an asterisk saying, will he be fully healthy and ready to go? When he's fully healthy, Bryce Hopkins is an all Big East first teamer.
We didn't mention him enough when we were talking about Providence. We talked about all the other pieces. He was kind of the given. But that also hinges how good's Providence going to be. They have pieces, but he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think that like ACLs are something where when like you can at this point with the medical professionals, you can get back to where you were. It's going to take time, but you can get back to where you were. All right, we'll end it with your bold prediction for the Big East this year. And my bold prediction is that when the season is all said and done, we are going to be looking at Cam Jones as the best point guard in college basketball this season. I think he's going to have a year where it's like 18, 5, and 5. With the kind of shooting splits that we'd hope to see out of him. That's my prediction here is he's going to have a monster season that puts him in the conversation for first team All-America with the likes of RJ Davis and Mark Sears. T.O., give me one bold prediction. Fanta, you follow that up and close the show.
Bold prediction. We're going super bold here. St. John's doesn't just make the tournament. They make the second weekend in the second game. I think they could make the Elite Eight. I think they're that good.
Whoa!
Trust Pitino, baby. Trust Pitino. And bring the white suit out. He'll look like a ghost.
Second year Pitino. Never doubt him, man. Never doubt him.
Wow. St. John's has not won a tournament game since 2000, so 25 years. Man,
Bedlam in Queens. Bedlam.
That absolute Bedlam in Queens. Man, oh man. Bold prediction. I will give you 2. Number 1, Xavier makes the Elite Eight. They make a regional final. They have a season that is just spectacular. And it will lead to something fascinating. Big picture thought, very, very brief. I think Sean Miller is going to stay at Xavier for a while. I thought if he had a really nice year this past year, there was a very good chance he would end up at Kentucky or Louisville or maybe even Arkansas. But all those jobs are filled. There was a huge carousel ripple effect. There always is a carousel. There always will be one. But the fact that those jobs are closed and John Shire ain't going anywhere, Hubert Davis ain't going anywhere, Sean's not going back out west. Like, I think that there's potentially Xavier fans should be thrilled because I think they could have a glorious period right now in the next couple of years. I think it could really open up this year.
Xavier always has a glorious period. Like, who are we kidding?
Well, Travis Steele, that didn't go well. I mean, the Travis Steele, they've got a rich, but I think guys like, I don't know, they went to the Sweet 16 2 years ago. And then immediately everyone's like, Sean Miller's going to get this job, that job, this job, that job. It's just like it was getting fielded and called for every job. You just wonder, like, maybe Sean just says he's been building a house with his wife Amy. You know, do they
solid
just
2,500 square feet?
Yeah, right, T.O. Like, do they just say
times 10?
Like Terrence, Xavier's never made a Final Four. Is it that fat now to say that Sean Miller could get them to their first at some point?
I think he'll get them to a Final Four at some point. I think
my other one is Seton Hall makes the tournament. They might be in Dayton. It might be in Dayton. I think they find a way to make the tournament. And I think Shaheen Holloway gets rumored all over the country because he's that good of a coach.
He gets rumored at Villanova.
Yeah, maybe. Not that far off. All right, listen, fellas, this has been fun. This has been the Field of 68 DTF podcast Big East preview. We will have another one coming for you next Monday. We will be together at ACC Media Day next week. It's going to be a blast, man. There's a lot of content coming out over the course of the next 5 weeks here on the Field of 68, and then the season is here. Field of 68 opening day showcase. First place you can watch Division I college basketball anywhere in the United States of America. Fellas, we'll see you